explanation. We had a bit of a chat last night at the Principal Club. It was absolutely fascinating. It was very personal. It was very moving. I started it off by saying that when I was a kid in Dublin, many, many decades ago indeed, I had no other ambition than to be an astronaut. When any teacher asked me, that was it, astronaut, bowl on the head, the whole works. So, you know, it's great to be here. I ended up not being an astronaut. I went into the field of music, and coincidentally, my band was as popular as a fart in a spacesuit. So there's a nice kind of poetic symmetry about me being here today with two actual astronauts. So, you know, first questions first. I want to come to yourself, Sara, and, you know, talk to us a bit about, you know, if somebody is out there and they're thinking about becoming an astronaut, as I did many, many decades ago, you know, what is the actual path to becoming an astronaut? How did you, you know, move from those dreams and looking up at the sky at night to actually going into space?
Yeah, thank you, Ocean. Honestly, there's no really direct path to make it happen, and especially for my case, growing up in Egypt, we weren't really exposed to the space field. There was no one that you could look at and think, oh wait, this is what I want to be when I grow up, because it wasn't really something that was possible for us. So there's no path that you can take, but I think, and also Norah, also, you know, we have to make our own paths. You have to always do what you think needs to be done, so always follow your instinct in that if you like doing something, do that for that reason and not for a specific, you know, goal. And for me, that was always the case. For me, how I got to space was that I started my degrees, I became an engineer just because I wanted to solve problems and I wanted to really try to understand how things worked around me, and that applied to like the human body afterwards, where I wanted to either become a medical doctor or pursue biomedical engineering, and I chose the latter because for me, in my head, I thought you can either save like one person at a time or save many at the same time, and that's why I chose biomedical engineering, and also because I love doing things with my own hands. And then it just kind of came very naturally, which is also really weird to say, that it came naturally, that it was just about having a lot of questions, being super curious about everything around me, and taking responsibility. It was all about, you know, saying, well, how come we don't have these answers, and what can we do about it, and what can I personally do about it? And that's how it happened. So it was all about this, and then I applied to this program when it popped up, and they selected me. And I think we tend to stop ourselves because we tend to doubt ourselves before we actually try. And if I had told myself not to apply to this program because I would likely not get it, I would not have gone to space. But I think we need to kind of like just go out there, just, you know, don't really, you know, let your own doubt stop you from actually trying, because you need to keep trying. Nothing is going to come easy also. So it's a crazy journey. It's a really weird journey.
Yes, totally, absolutely. You know, and you kind of reminded me of that great saying. It is a bit of a cliche, but it's so true. You miss 100% of the goals that you don't try. You know, and you've really kind of, you know, exhibited incredible, you know, courage and perseverance and vision, and you've really gone for these things that maybe, you know, people were not kind of opening the door for you. You kind of had to open many of those doors yourselves, you know. And so coming over to yourself, Dr. Patten, now talk to us a little bit about, you know, your past. Did you have any moments where you suddenly realized, this is what I want to do? Because this is a big commitment, and it's really extraordinary.
It is, but you know what? I can totally relate to a lot of what Sara has said just there, in terms of it's never a straight line, I suppose, to anything in life. And yeah, when I was a kid growing up in Mayo, in Ballina,
Mayo in the house,
hello,
yes, we love it.
There's always Mayo people in the house.
Always.
But my dad's side of the family moved to Cleveland, Ohio, and my mom's sister is in Cleveland. So I actually have more relations in Cleveland than I do in Ireland. So I have a big connection, I suppose, with the US. And when I was 11, I was in 5th class in national school, I got to go to visit NASA. And honestly, I didn't realize, I suppose, the impact at the time. But having that opportunity, you know, to see the wind tunnels, to see the aircraft, to kind of get exposed to this amazing area of space exploration and aviation in that way was just actually life-changing. And then when I was 15, I went to Kennedy Space Center, and I stood under the Saturn V rocket, you know, the stacked one that went to the moon, and I thought, this incredible feat of engineering and people collaborating to make this happen, to send people to the moon. My mind was blown away, and I thought, this is it for me, space is it. And, you know, very like Sara has said, there was absolutely no roadmap at the time, you know, growing up in Ireland. And it's been incremental steps, incremental progresses all the time to kind of get to where I am today.
Incredible. My goodness, it does sound very much like both of you have had to forge this path. There's no existing roadmap already. I mean, did you, like coming up to yourself, Sara, did you find there were obstacles? Were people actively, you know, encouraging you not to go there? Like, what did you encounter and how did you get through it?
Yeah, constantly. Growing up in Egypt, of course, it's not really usual for someone to have these crazy dreams or to want to do something that kind of challenges the status quo. So for me, it was every time I would want to do something, I was always told not to do it. So when I wanted to do mechatronics for my bachelor's, people used to think that I was doing it just to kind of like be stubborn or to just not like, but that was not the reason. You don't study something. And because for them, it was a lot of like, how can a girl be interested in this? Like, this is a boy's thing. So for me, I was told not to study mechatronics because it would be too hard for me. But if I was a guy, I would have never been told that.
Wow.
And so I did it anyway, and I really, really, truly enjoyed it. And then after that, what I wanted to do biomedical engineering, because in Egypt we don't have opportunities in that field, everyone told me, like, why are you doing this? Like, you're just wasting your time, you're wasting your money, you're wasting everything by doing something that you're never going to have any opportunities in your country to work on. And then I still did it anyway. And then when it came to the space field, that was because that's just so far away from everything that we're used to. We don't do, we do some stuff, but not that much. Without getting into too much detail on that. But so the space field was just so far away from everything that we're used to. So then it was kind of seemed like a waste of time for them. And on top of all of that, being a woman in the Arab world, the success of a woman is looked at as a lot less than that of a man. So even if I do succeed, it doesn't really matter. And even if I fail, it doesn't really matter because for them, or the way that you're looked at most of the time is that, well, you're just going to get married and stay at home and you're going to depend on your husband, right? But that's ridiculous, it does not make any sense. And of course, I've had my mom's story, of course, is a completely different one. And she was the first electrical engineer in her country. She's Lebanese. She was the one of three, I think, to have graduated from electrical engineering in Lebanon, then went on to work in Saudi Arabia. She fled Lebanon because of the war, and she went on to do that and ran a whole hospital. So she was really, and also at the time in Saudi Arabia, it's crazy to be an engineer. So she was one of, I think, maybe the only one. So for me, that was always possible. So I think for us at home, my dad is not an engineer, my mom is. So for us at home, I think my siblings and I grow up looking at the person who fixes things and fixes if the light bulb needs changing or the TV needs fixing or anything related to that. My mom is the one who always did it. So that was the normal for us. It wasn't my dad that was fixing anything. It was my mom. So it was really, for me to have had my parents who were like that and my dad not have, they've been, separating the capabilities of a man and a woman, which is also unusual for an Arab man. He's very traditional, of course. And I think I was very lucky to have had parents who sacrificed so much for us to have a good education, and that was a priority. Nothing else mattered. And I think education was the most important thing, and it allows you to have control over your life. And I think without it, we can't really do anything. So that's what I try to do also now, back in Egypt and everywhere else. So yeah, you have to not listen to what people tell you, because if I had, then I would not be able to do anything. And you have to also not only not listen to that, but maybe listen to it, but also use it. So I always like to say that you can use the difficulty to your advantage. You can always use that and take it, and because I've always been underestimated too, which is a whole other story. But I always liked my work to speak for itself. Yeah. So you don't really try to prove anything to anyone. You don't tell them no, I can't do this or can't do that. So I used to always be silent and let the work speak for itself.
Outstanding, outstanding. And that's a great example. It's a demonstration of that old theory, that old saying, sometimes the obstacle is the path. That's the way through. But thank you to your parents for being you know, so wonderfully progressive and encouraging you and really kind of giving you that kind of freedom to make this incredible path, you know, to achieve things that so many, you know, I think, what, 600 odd people have gone into space, yourself included. I mean, it's a very small number of people, so this is a great testament to the wonderful kind of family that you have and your great determination and singular vision. But I'd like to come over to your good self, Dr. Patten. Now, as we've just heard, you know, it takes a lot. It takes some vision, it takes perseverance. You're forging your own path, as you have both done, not listening to folks who are telling you you can't do it, just going straight through them. You know, but I believe that your progress into the higher reaches of space is taking a very significant and very exciting turn that you're going to announce here today. This is a world exclusive, my friends. This is a big opportunity. If you're in a company, if you are interested in working with somebody who's going to go into space, listen closely, because Dr. Patten has a very good announcement.
Yes, so very exciting. Just last night we announced and launched my sponsorship campaign for my space flight. So we had an amazing reaction, and as I said last night at the dinner, what I really view as the most valuable part is not me going to space as one person. It is an opportunity for Ireland to sit at the table of human spaceflight. It's happening now, the suborbitals, you know, the commercial access, all of those things, and the impact, the legacy, the you know, reach that this flight will have in Ireland is immense.
Yeah, 100%. And so this is, yeah, we did the principals dinner last night. Yes, round of applause, absolutely. Well said. Well said. I mean, this is huge. Like yesterday evening at the principals' dinner, which is like a warm-up function for the Dublin Tech Summit, we had a kind of a more informal chat in a much smaller space, and you very kindly gave the world-exclusive announcement in that small room. But then this is a big deal. This means that brands can actually get on board. They can work with you as sponsors, as partners for this space program. And this, you know, as strange as it, you know, seems to myself, growing up in the 70s here in Ireland, like you say, it wasn't really an obvious path to anybody, but here it is. The opportunity is now. The folks can speak to you. How do should they get in touch with you if they're interested in getting on board the space program with yourself?
Yeah, so my website, norahpatten.com, and
okay.
The details are there to connect. Yep.
Okay, fabulous. NorahPatten.com, and I dare say if you reach out to Dr. Patten on any of the social media platforms, herself and the team will get back to you ASAP. So let's, you know, you are going to go into space. This is going to happen. I think some of the folks in here might be part of making that happen in the future.
Absolutely.
But for sure, for sure. And I'd like to come over to yourself, Sarah, because you've been in space. You've been up there. And something that always fascinates me is what changes about people when they go into space? What effect does it have on you? How do you see the world? Do you see yourself? Do you see life differently? I mean, is there a before space and after space for you? Definitely,
there is. It is much, much, much more profound than I thought it was going to be. And we were talking about that also yesterday, and I think it's, as an engineer, you have to be skeptical about everything. You're trained to be skeptical. You have to, but you're also trained to, as a scientist, to go into things with an open mind, to be okay with changing your mind about something, changing your mind about something. So I was sent to space to analyze the overview effect, which is this term that Frank White came up with many years ago after interviewing so many astronauts from all over the world. He's interviewed, I think, like, I don't know, many, maybe 50, a lot. And so a lot of astronauts describe coming back from space and feeling like they feel a lot more responsible towards space, because you see this thin blue line that protects Earth, just this very thin atmosphere. That's the only thing separating us from the blackness and death of space, basically.
Yeah.
And also, when you're looking at Earth from space, you don't see lines on the map. And something clicks, and you realize that, well, we know that some men in a room centuries ago decided to draw lines on the map and separate tribes, separate countries, separate so many things. And these separations have created so many disparities, so much, you know, it dictates what type of opportunities you can or can't get in your life, which is ridiculous. It is really ridiculous. And for me, because I grew up from that side of the world, and because not a lot of people from this side, my side of the world, I know it's really bad to say that, but it's like just like geographically, have gone to space, I did come up with, I went to space with this idea already, and that's why I created my company, Deep Space Initiative, which is aimed at increasing access to space by providing opportunities in research, education, and we're also working on the legal side. And the thing is, because I had that already, and I was fighting for this my entire life because I have faced those disparities in opportunities, and because, let's say, if there was an opportunity that I would be on paper extremely qualified for, I would just not even allowed to apply for it because of my passport. So it doesn't really make sense, right? So I think I went into space with that idea already in mind, so it's not like, so that didn't change for me, but it pushed me to do something about it even more. So, and I think there's so many different parts to it, and as an engineer again, I think I'm just an engineer through and through.
Excellent.
When I came back from space, which is also, again, very unusual to do, I really had to sit down, break it down into bullet points, and really like try to see, okay, this is what I saw, this is how it made you feel, why is that, and what can I do? So like really break it down, break everything down into bullet points. I still have my paper with bullet points. And it's really, really, like, what I can say about the whole thing is that things make different sense. They really, really do. And you might be looking at something before that you've looked at so many times, and there's so normal. It's nothing too exciting. But I remember one time, I think like a week or two after my flight, I was on a train, and it was just a very normal ride, nothing exciting, just listening to my music. And I was just looking out the window. Just a bunch of trees, some grass, some houses, nothing unusual. But then it clicked. I had to stop everything that I was doing. I took off my headphones, took out my phone, and had to write things down because it really clicked. It's something different. For some reason, it looked different, and my understanding of it was so much different than what it was before. And for some reason, which is, again, very weird to think about, but you don't really think about as Earth as like something that you can hold with your hand. But for me, for some reason, looking at that, I imagined holding Earth in my hand and imagine like shaking it. And if you shake it, the oceans are going to stay because it felt like it's lungs. And the trees would stay, everything would stay, but the humans and houses would fall because those are just extra. And you kind of realize, you kind of see Earth very differently, as its own living being, and it's so self-sufficient, and it has everything that it needs, and we're just the ones that are kind of like extra on it. We haven't even been on it that long, and we're really not being very nice to it, to put it nicely. So it is a very weird feeling, and that's one of all of the different points that I've had. And also there's your understanding of how interconnected everything is within Earth itself, and how connected you are with space. And because when you're on a rocket and when you're sitting on a rocket and you're looking out the window, you see the changes in colors. And then when you get to space, the only thing that's telling you you're in space is the color, or the changes of colors. So it goes from light blue to darker blue to purple, and then black. And that's when you know. And that's the only thing telling you that you're in space. You don't really exit anything. Like it doesn't really happen. So the only thing that's telling you you're in space are the visual cues, which is so confusing because you kind of doubt that that's actually what you're seeing. And you doubt that, am I really in space? Is it that close, And then you kind of connect Earth with space so much. And for me, there's a lot of astronauts that talk about looking at Earth and feeling more connected towards Earth, and then others that look more towards the outside, the blackness, the vastness. And I was really looking at the vastness of space so much, and I really felt this really strong connection to it that I've never felt before. It's really weird because I never expected it. So you have no expectations of that happening, but it did happen, and it's really weird to say because this environment doesn't want you to be there. It wants to kill you. But then you feel so connected to it because it is our past and it's our future. And as humans, we are meant to be exploring it. So it clicks. Yeah. And for me, it really, really clicked, and it felt like for the very first time, because of how many times I've moved in my life, because I've never really felt like I belonged anywhere. Everyone around me always didn't think that I belonged. No matter where I was, even in the US, in Europe, or in Africa, everywhere I was, I never really belonged anywhere. So for me, it was for the very, very, very first time in my life that I felt like I was home.
Wow.
And when I came back, it felt like I was being ripped away from where I was meant to be.
Amazing.
Yeah.
My goodness, that's absolutely stunning. I mean, yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
That is one overview effect and a half. That is very impressive. I love it. I think you've just taken us all on a journey up there. We were with you looking out the window into the blackness. But I'd like to come over, so thank you for that. I'd like to come over to yourself, Dr. Patten. Now, of course, all of this it's about these moments, these experiences, the exceptional individuals and their amazing life journeys that have facilitated they're making that voyage that very few people will make. But of course, it's very much about an ecosystem as well. There's a tech ecosystem, there's an innovation ecosystem, there's an engineering ecosystem. Talk to us a bit about the concept of Space University and, in particular, is there anything for Irish companies here, Irish innovators, Irish engineers who want to be part of this global ecosystem of expertise, making the impossible possible?
Yeah, so I think, what an amazing perspective. And, in all of the training programs I've done so far, I haven't really sat down to think about what that overview effect would be like, for me actually getting to space. So it's incredible to hear just how impactful it is and your view and, everything that it entails. So amazing, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's really been the commercial growth, I think, in the last kind of 10 to 15 years that we in the industry have been kind of, sitting, waiting, watching this unfold. Sara flew Blue Origin, commercial suborbital. That's going to be my route, commercial suborbital. The program I do with the International Institute for Astronautical Sciences, we get to test commercial spacesuits, which are NASA funded. I wear them with my Irish flag on the side with pride.
Fantastic.
But it's really been this ecosystem and this evolution of commercial access, I think, that has, I've absolutely experienced firsthand myself through the program, but also through partnerships. So, for example, back in 2013, which is mad, it's 10 years ago now, but I signed an agreement with NanoRacks, which is a commercial company in the US. They have access to research facilities on the space station, and I sent the first student experiment from Ireland to the International Space Station, and it was tested up there and spent 10 weeks on board. So that's just one example, I suppose, of the commercial access and what it means for a country like Ireland to have that access. And likewise for companies getting involved, there's some amazing, innovative examples of Irish companies participating in the space sector at the moment. And part of that is our participation in the European Space Agency. So we pay about 25 million a year into that. And as a result, then companies, research institutes, organisations in Ireland can participate in various programs. So I think it's probably at the most exciting time from what I've seen in the past 15 years. SpaceX, had its 10th human crewed launch just there a few days ago. I was listening into the video of the launch, and just their statistics are something amazing. They've had over 200 launches, and 70% of those have been on reused rockets. So I just think it's phenomenal. It's it's really just an exciting time.
For sure, and you're opening up a kind of avenue for many companies who maybe not already in that field of engineering or expertise to get on board as partners, as sponsors for your own journey. And I think this is just a great opportunity. Do visit Dr. Patten's website if you're interested in finding out more. So coming back over to yourself, Sara, now you mentioned that idea of the law in space, and I know that's an area of interest for you because it is such, to call it a blank canvas is an understatement. I mean, what's your thoughts on law in space and how this could possibly unfold?
Yeah, law in space was not something that I thought I would get involved in, but I'm currently doing my PhD, and I was meant to focus on the challenges of human spaceflight. So because of my background in mechanical and biomedical, I wanted to really focus on, the physiological effects of being in space, as well as how do you design the most efficient spacesuit, because it uses both mechanical areas and also it touches a human life. It's a very intricate spacecraft that needs to keep humans alive and also be able to thrive on both surfaces of the moon and Mars. But then after coming back from space, and now I'm finding myself really not deviating, but really putting a lot of focus, a lot of time, a lot of effort on the space side, the legal side of things. And we have a department of legal department within Deep Space Initiative, our company. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to educate basically about why the laws that exist that stop international collaboration, they might have made sense a long time ago, but they don't make sense anymore. So what can we do about it? So as we have a team of space lawyers working on this, on trying to do research, and we're going to be presenting at IAC this year in Baku. And our head of legal is actually sitting right here, so the head of the department. And we're really trying to educate about this. And we're not a lobbying entity, so we can't really influence those laws, but we're trying to educate about this. Because a lot of high-level officials, they're so busy with making those very important decisions, but they don't really see how these laws affect international collaboration and how it affects the economy, both in the US and everywhere else. Because if you always have to reinvent the wheel, you always have to start over before, if you need to solve a problem, then it doesn't really make sense, right? We need to push space exploration forward. And so that's one side of things that we're working on, and I'm also doing that for my PhD. So a lot of the research that I do for my PhD is also focused on this, on export control and ITAR and all of this. But it's also the other side of space law. And when we're talking about the Outer Space Treaty, like all of the laws that have been written a really long time ago, very ambiguously, is that the word?
Yeah,
ambiguously?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're written so that it's so easy to interpret in different ways. So each country decides to interpret it differently. So then they don't really make sense anymore, right? Why do we have them if you're free to interpret it in different ways? So we need to kind of try to push for not a rewrite, but like, how do we do this more efficiently? And by doing that, because I have been thinking a lot about this and really doing research and really working with my professor, but I also kind of like to take a step back, because I don't think we need to always be solving just the one problem on the bottom, but like, why is that happening? And that relates to international law, and that it relates to how we're seeing a lot of human rights being broken, but then no one is able to really do anything about it, right? How do you enforce that? We've seen what's happening with Israel and Palestine for a very long time. The hypocrisy that comes, because other parties benefit from this. How do you enforce the law, and how do you do what's right? How do you use the law on your side? And that's also something that I've found myself. It's not related to space, but it is related to just like humanity, because we can't really go to space and take the same problems with us. So they're so intertwined. There's so many parts to it. And then, like, I'm used to speaking the engineering language. That's what I'm used to. That is what I'm comfortable with. And same with the business side of things. Throughout my career, I have founded several companies. So it's not something also that I'm comfortable with. I'm used to. I really enjoy. Now I'm speaking this whole other language of law and politics that I've never thought that I would have to learn. And it's so messy, and it's so complicated. And when I started doing that at the beginning, especially in Egypt, oh man. It's a really different thing, and it's really, everything when you start doing something new, of course at the beginning it's intimidating, of course it's really difficult, but you have to push, you always have to fight. And honestly, I sometimes think about it, do I always have to fight my entire life? And I think, well, yeah, I have to. You just have to fight, you have to do what's right.
Amen. Well, listen, thank you for fighting. I hope you keep fighting. I hope you get the support you need, the partners, the sponsorship. Ladies and gents, join me in thanking Sara Sabry and Dr. Norah Patten. How wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. And as is tradition now, folks, just a little reminder to please do take wonderful photographs, share them online, use the hashtag DTS23, and in the case of these two brilliant individuals, watch this space. One more time, a big round of applause. Dr. Norah Patten and Sara Sabry, thank you so much.